The important thing to remember about trying to speak a new language is this: there is no secret. There's so many people out there and so many videos that will say the secret to speaking English or the secret to learning a new language. There is no secret. You have to practice. That's it. Practice makes perfect. You can practice with a tutor, you can practice in a language exchange, or you can find ways to practice by yourself. But you have to actually start speaking. You actually have to start putting words out there. So today I'm going to give you my tips, my pieces of advice for improving your speaking skills. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Alice and this is English with Alice B, where you can come to learn English in a clear and simple way without the stress. Today's video is a little bit different from what I usually do. It's not going to be a grammar or a vocabulary or a true crime lesson. Today I'm going to talk to you about actually speaking and using a new language. This comes from years of being a language tutor, but also my years of being a language learner. Using a new language and speaking a new language is a skill that I've been doing, or I've been trying to do, for quite a while now. So let me start by saying that the number one problem that I see is confidence. You can study grammar, you can study vocabulary, you can listen to podcasts and you can read stories and you can feel that you're familiar with a language and that you understand it. But speaking requires a final element that you can't study, that you can't find in a book, and that is confidence. Imagine doing a presentation or giving a speech to a room of 100 people in your native language. A lot of people would feel anxious and nervous about a situation like that because speaking to other people or with other people can be quite an intimidating situation. I remember when I lived in Italy and I was trying to make new friends and trying to speak with them, I knew in my head the exact phrase that I wanted to say. I knew the words that I wanted to use. I knew the grammar. I was pretty sure that I had it correct. But the fear of speaking and saying something wrong or using the wrong word or having a terrible accent or terrible pronunciation, the fear of making a mistake was so big that a lot of times I would just freeze and I would just prefer not to say anything. This is honestly quite ridiculous. First of all, if you are learning a new language, if you are speaking a second language, people are not going to stop and laugh at you if you make a mistake. Most people are good people. Most people are sympathetic. And if they can see and hear that you are struggling a little bit or that you are not using your first language, most people will be patient. And if you make a mistake, most people won't say anything. They certainly will not laugh at you and ridicule you. This is something I wish I had learned sooner. Admittedly, it did help me when I was, out socializing and I had a couple of drinks. If I had a couple of beers or a glass of wine, this did tend to make me feel a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more open to speaking. I'm not saying that you need to get drunk to start speaking a new language. This helped me to understand that it was all in my mind. Alcohol does not improve your ability to speak a new language. What it does is it removes those barriers. It removes those blocks in your mind that are saying, you shouldn't do this. You are going to sound stupid. It kind of silences those voices a little bit. If you can find another way to quieten those voices without drinking alcohol, that's a good practice too. So I'm going to share with you some techniques that I've used as a language learner and that I also recommend as a language tutor. Some small exercises that you can do by yourself that will help you to start speaking. Of course, buying lessons with a tutor and with someone who you can have a conversation with really, really helps. If you're not in a position to buy classes, often language exchanges are very useful. You don't have to be in a different city or a new city for this. There are plenty of language exchange apps online. I haven't used them. Things like italki, Tandem, I think was one of them. I haven't used them, but I have heard some feedback about them. This seems to be a good way to connect with people who want to learn your language. And of course, if you want to learn their language, you do 20 minutes speaking one language, 20 minutes the other. Speaking and speaking with another person is the best way to practice this. But I understand that that may not always be an option. So, how can you practice by yourself? And especially, how can you practice without having to pay for classes? My first piece of advice is reading out loud. Prepare a piece of text, a small piece of text about yourself, where you were born, what your name is, what your age is, what you do for your job, do you study, what your hobbies are. Make a list of things that you know how to say in another language that are easy for you to understand. And have it in front of you and practice saying those words out loud. This is a way to do a few things. First of all, is muscle memory. Sometimes the problem with speaking a new language is that you have to make sounds and put on an accent and pronounce things in a way that you may not do in your native language. So it's a very physical thing with your mouth speaking a new language, and it may help you to just train it by preparing a speech and practicing reading out loud. For example, this letter in English is just R or R. R like rain, car, run, burn. Okay, we have a R sound. It's quite flat. In Italian and Spanish, this would be R. You have to roll the tongue. This is a very physical movement that we don't have in English. So it can be very difficult for English speakers or for native English speakers to learn how to make this sound. It's one of the challenges. This, in English, makes a th sound, where you bring the tongue forward in between the teeth like this, and you say th, like think, bath, things, booth. This sound doesn't exist in Italian, in any word, in any way. So it's really difficult for my Italian students to pronounce this sound as well, because again, it's a very physical thing. So reading text out loud can really help you to train your muscles and to move your mouth in certain ways to learn those new sounds. Reading out loud also helps you to prepare the speech. If you've written something about yourself and then you go out to socialize, or you're at a business meeting, or you're meeting new people, and you have to talk about yourself and you have to introduce yourself, it won't be the first time that you've said this thing. A problem with using a new language is that we know what we want to say, we know how we want to say it, but it's actually the first time sometimes that we will have said it. If you practice this script beforehand and then it arrives, the moment that you need to say this particular thing, it won't be the first time that you've said this word or that you've said this sentence. It's a good way to practice it before you have to say it. So I advise you to do this with text that you prepare yourself. And when you start to practice this skill, start to read text from other sources. News articles, online articles, blogs, cooking recipes, social media posts, things that you haven't written, but that you can still follow and understand. This will also expose you to a wider variety of vocabulary. So it's a good way to expand on your vocab skills as well. Another exercise that I recommend is called shadowing. Now, this is advised for slightly more advanced students because it has to be quite fast. It works like this. You have a piece of audio, which can come from anywhere. It can come from the news, it can come from a movie, from a series, it can be a piece of audio that you found online. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is that first of all, you understand it. This is not an exercise to challenge your understanding skills or your comprehension skills. This is a repeating exercise. So you find a piece of audio, doesn't need to be too long, and as you listen to it, you repeat what's being said. You don't stop the audio, you don't pause it, you wait for the natural pauses, and then you repeat what's just been said. The goal isn't just to repeat the words as you hear them, but to replicate the speaker's intonation, accent, pronunciation, the speed as well. This can help you improve your fluency because it's muscle memory and it forces you to listen and to try and replicate natural speech. So those are just a couple of examples of things that you can do by yourself. My third and my final piece, and I think the most important piece of advice, is stop trying to be perfect. A lot of my students tell me that their fear of speaking comes from this feeling that they're not saying the right things, they're not speaking perfectly, and this pressure that they put on themselves really suppresses them. It really stops them from trying to speak. Nobody is expecting you to speak perfectly. And this can actually ruin your chances. People often find that this pressure to speak perfectly makes them feel anxious, makes them feel nervous. If they make a mistake in public and then they feel worse, and this kind of, it snowballs. They stop speaking and they stop trying to speak. You do not have to speak perfectly. You have to be understood. Make yourself understood. If you want to use impressive vocabulary and complex grammar structures, you have to start from somewhere. You have to make mistakes to learn. This is something I wish I had learned sooner. Once you let go of the idea that you need to speak perfectly and that it's okay to make mistakes, you will find that you have the space and the room and the freedom to start speaking. Go easy on yourself. If you're trying to speak a new language, you're already trying to do something that is difficult and challenging, and putting pressure on yourself just makes it worse. Learning a new language and speaking a new language is also not linear. It doesn't just go in one direction. Some days you will feel really confident about your skills and you'll have a conversation with someone and it will go really well and you will feel proud and super happy with your progress. And then the next day, you might feel like you've lost all your progress. You go to a bar and you can't even order a coffee. This is something that happened to me when I was living in Italy. After a year of being there, I remember I started to relax a bit more and I was feeling more confident with using Italian. And it really helped me as well how friendly Italians were. When you try to speak Italian with native speakers, they often responded in a really warm and friendly way. They would correct me if I made a mistake, but they would correct me in a way that wasn't embarrassing. It was just more informative. So it was really easy practicing it there. And I remember feeling like, oh, I'm making progress. I feel good. I get good responses. Nice. And then one day at a bar, I went to order a lemonade, which is practically the same. You know, in English is lemonade, in Italian is limonata, una limonata. And I choked. I went to the bar and I completely froze. The word didn't come to me. And when I tried to say it, it didn't come out. And I was so embarrassed. And it felt like all that progress I made, I'd just been pushed back 10 steps. And then for a few days after that incident, it was hard for me to start speaking again. I felt really embarrassed about that small moment where I couldn't get my words out. And it really pushed me back a lot. So if you have a really, really good day with your new language, and then the next day you struggle a little bit, that's completely normal. We have good days and we have bad days. Again, the important thing is that you're not too hard on yourself. Take a moment to reflect on what your mistake was and how you can avoid it the next time. Just keep going, keep trying every day, try to do a small exercise every day, and you will see progress. And if you have days where you're not seeing much progress, that's okay as well. It's still happening in the background. Reading and listening to and exposing yourself to audio and the new language will all be doing work in the background somewhere. I hope you found that useful. Guys, if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to leave something in the comments below. I will get back to you. Remember, we're all on this language learning journey. And it's not easy. It is challenging sometimes, but it's also a lot of fun. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I will see you next time. Bye.